tend to have a really good, I think they're going to be okay. I've seen too many kids that are raised in the harshest religious environments, completely indoctrinated. And something at some point triggers that lets them first say, oh, it's okay to question, or it's okay to doubt, or I doubted and I didn't immediately get fried. And then kind of ease away. Doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm that keen on teaching the specific values.
Sure, but so it's probably not.
Other than the ones that we have as a society already adopted and encoded.
That's what I mean.
The religious freedoms, the liberties, the things outlined in the Constitution.
Well, that's what I mean. So if there are some of those values, including the idea of secular morality itself, that are opposed to the values that parents themselves have.
Yeah, tough. This is the society that you agree to live in, and these are the values that we're going to teach. Now, but you also have to say that we're open to changing those with a demonstration that we should.
Okay.
Well, that's where you get the homeschoolers.
Yeah.
I know you're kind of making this dichotomy between secular and non-secular, internal, external, and democratic dictatorship. And we often talk about the.
I was going to go white-black, but I thought it'd be too obvious.
We're talking about, often talk about that we have a secular nation, right? And I'm wondering if that's equivocation. So I'm actually wanting to say, by what you were talking about as secular as a framework to look at a system or of rules or something like that.
Are you asking why I use those labels?
Well, more specifically, I'm asking, you're saying, by the way in which you put out secular in this presentation, do we have a secular government?
Sure. Is it being used that way? Not necessarily.
Because in some respect, you can say that the ways in which our government, that we say it's secular because, it's written down, just imposed.
Idealistically, it isn't. It should be, and it's formed that way. Realistically, it's not, which is why we have so many problems and why we're fighting these battles over and over. Yeah?
I'm still trying to think exactly how to word it because I'm listening to all the conversations about internal and external. And the way I understand you using those terms, by external you mean rules, laws, guidelines handed down from something outside of humans.
Or outside of the actual participants. I mean, it could have been another human. Just somebody, like a king would be handing down laws that he's actually not subject to. That would be external. Yeah, outside. Somebody who's not subject to those rules.
Right.
Which your kids have to go to bed at 8, but you don't have to.
Right.
Which I'm not sure if I completely follow that thought, but internal, the way I understand it, is like inside, it's like the people who are in the group that are making up the rules.
Yep.
And so in a way, I think there is no way to get outside of society or outside of people, because I don't believe in God. I don't believe there's any transcendent thing. So I actually think that the secular, non-secular distinction is somewhat moot. And that what's actually the most important thing that I heard you say was systems that are responsive and change to the people that are in them, and systems that aren't responsive and don't change in response to the people that are.
Yeah, you've already kind of moved on to the follow-on thing. In the internal, external, I mean, we're looking at the big world thing. If everybody in this room got together and said, okay, we're a little society, and we're going to have rules about what pictures I can show on this thing here. We could make up all the rules ourselves. We could talk about them. We could get them change it. We could go through and look at some examples, find out which ones were pleasant, which ones weren't. The idea that any individual in this group could say, it doesn't matter what the rest of you think. There's a guy outside who owns and operates this building that will not let you put that on the screen. That is something that is external. May be valid in the sense that he can make a demonstration that he has some authority. He owns this space, she owns this space, they own this space, and they have the right to say what goes on here. That's valid because there's a demonstration of authority. It doesn't make it any more moral. It doesn't make them any more morally right. Because if they came in and said, you can't show, any blasphemous images here, which wouldn't happen if you do church, but if they did that, it wouldn't mean they're morally right. It would just mean that they're opposing their authority. that we've had to recognize by virtue of getting this facility. If we were having the same thing at my place, it doesn't matter which one of you says the guy outside can't show that image. Tough, my place. And that's the point. This is our place. This planet, this existence, this reality, it's our place. And we got to own it.
So how would you describe or define the set of moral values that come literally internal to the individual? Like, I'm not going to say, like, I may obey the law that, 65 is the speed limit, but I also don't think it's morally wrong for me to go 66. I'm going to abide by it because it is an external set of values that has been determined by.
Do you think it's wrong for you to go to 166?
Yes, because I made that on that personal evaluation. Like, I've evaluated those things within me. I haven't
But
said
it wasn't arbitrary. It's not like you had a gut feeling that 166 was just wrong.
Right.
It's that you understand the consequences of going that fast. That the potential harm increases dramatically as you begin speeding.
Right. So the question I'm asking is, 65 is what the local society came to agreement upon.
Yep.
What do you call that evaluation that I did that determined that 66 was still okay? Because that's what I consider internal.
It's
Has to be good before you pay.
66 now are over from 65.
But it has to be good before you pay the gate.
Right, that's one of the details of the comment I made. What I'm actually asking is, you define internal as internal to the group. I'm asking, what do you define internal to the individual?
the question that I have is that when you say you determine that, for example, 66 is okay, if you get pulled over for doing 66, are you going to acknowledge that you were breaking the law and take the ticket?
Yes.
Okay. Then you already acknowledged this societal thing, and you have a different view, and you're going to push the boundary a little bit. I don't even know that this is a moral question. You recognize that it's like, speeding is the example I would have used to explain this better. You stolen that opportunity. I don't know what I would call it. You're asking what I would call it. I don't know that I would actually consider it any kind of moral evaluation.
I guess I'm just saying that from my understanding of what you said, you were defining the establishment of that 65 speed limit as an internal situation, based on the way you define internal and external. And I'm asking
If we
for
were
a
to look at
definition
speed limits as
a value system that's established in actuality within the individual, what do you call that? If that's internal, then what's me saying?
well, I'm talking about internal within the system, and you're talking about internal within yourself. It's just your personal take of it. I have my own personal take that disagrees with a number of positions that the society that I live in has adopted. I can work to change those in the areas where I think that they're dramatically wrong. But I may be forever in the minority. I may be, people, we go back to, I use this example, I guess, because some friends of mine are in this position. There are plenty of people who would advocate legalization of marijuana. Currently, it's illegal. And there are plenty of people who say you've given no good reason for this to be illegal and for something else to be legal. For example, comparing marijuana and alcohol. And those people have their own personal take on it, which may eventually become the de facto standard. If enough people think that 66 is safe enough, and we look at the studies and we say, you know what, when we let people drive 66, it's really not any worse, then it becomes the new de facto standard. It's the way things change. And so when you look around it, it's not that we have to go for a happy medium or even necessarily a consensus, although consensus does tend to drive. Your personal view on it can be dramatically different, and you are doing what we all do, sacrificing some personal liberty, your ability to go 75 or 80, in order to live in a society that protects your interests. I don't know what else you would call it other than just your personal evaluation. I don't know that it has any moral onus on it.
I just feel like there's an obvious paradox that arises when you consider that these are all, like, this can vary from spot to spot, And I remember being, 18 years old, I remember being 17 years old and dating my girlfriend and my birthday coming, and the next day it was a crime. And I just kept thinking, like, this makes no sense. But it's what this local society has established as rule,
Yeah.
And I'm sure I could find a parent who could make an argument that it's 100% the wrong and right or black and white.
And
I mean,
there
they
are
never really are.
exceptions. There are, I mean, this is what I was talking about when I said you're not going to find a one-size-fits-all answer. And so in some cases you do go with the happy medium, and in other cases you go with whichever one has the loudest voice. And it doesn't make it morally right at all. When we're talking about the actual rules that govern what we can and can't do, you're not necessarily talking about what we consider moral. Yeah.
I just want to say that there's a difference between laws and morals. Laws may be based on morals, but they don't always perfectly embody morals because morals are kind of squishy and gray. And I think the fact that when you said, am I immoral if I go 66, most people in here went like, no, shows that this is not internal to you. If we all turned to you and went, oh my God, you went 66! I can't believe it. We all freaked out. And suddenly you have to start going, well, gee, maybe I should rethink that. Because everyone you knew around you was saying that you were doing something horrible.
But he didn't tell
But we
you that he
did.
was doing it at 20.
But I guess I'm just saying that, like, this is not internal to you. We're all in agreement. In other words, you are going with the general flow of society.
Well, I guess the point I'm making is whether we're in agreement or not doesn't determine whether it's internal to me or not. It just happens to be in sync. And like to me, all law is, or I'm sorry, the only time I'm not breaking the law is when what I feel like doing and what someone else has established I should do just happen to sync up. And when they don't, I'm committing a crime. And when they do, I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Because he made that decision to go 66 without knowing what anybody else.
Because
I actually don't think he did.
But based on what you're saying, like we all live in an obviously majority Christian society, so there is a large part of the population that's looking at all of us and saying, "Oh God, like you people are not abiding by the obvious truth." Like that influence is there, and we're still sitting here feeling within moral correctness.
Yeah, and I think that shows us a lot of room for flexibility.
I'm going to jump in for a second and give a friend of mine the last word, or nearly the last word, because we need to be down by 5:30 and it's almost 4:30 and I don't want any traffic problems. So Schilling.
Well, yeah, I have a question kind of related to that, partially with my sort of disagreement there. I would say that it's definitely internal for the governed population. But for the individual, for me, I consider myself amoral. I don't consider my internal decisions to be moral in any respect, or immoral in any respect. But I'm part of the governed populace, so the society has determined a moral structure within which I have to live, and that gives influence on me in how to choose my behavior, whether it will be beneficial to me or detrimental to me. So the going 66 would be my acceptance of the risks and the benefits based on the morality that the governed population has developed internally. So my question for Matt...
It's a pragmatic, amoral position on your part.
Right.
Yeah.
My question to you would be, would you consider any single individual's personal choices to be moral-based or based on benefit and detriment in relation to the moral standards they live in as part of the governed populace? Like, would the word moral even apply to the individual choice?
It would to me,
Okay.
because I don't care whether it's ultimately pragmatic or what they would consider it. I'm the person who's going to make a moral assessment of it. And while, in many cases, the moral assessment may be neutral. For example, I don't know your name, Dillahunty, that's right. We've met before. My moral assessment of his driving 66 is that in 99% of the cases it's morally neutral. I couldn't care less. Now, if he was doing it in a 20 or in a school zone, or on a motorcycle, weaving in and out of traffic that was going a lot slower, obviously I think he's taking a risk that I would consider to have moral implications, because he's showing reckless disregard for not only his own life, but the life of others, which I think is where we get into kind of moral responsibilities. But it doesn't matter to me what his motivation is, I'm still making a moral assessment. And I'm fine with somebody else saying they're not making a moral assessment, as long as we can get down to the brass tacks of how are we going to live. And I think that the best way is the secular moral system, or the secular evaluation of anything, is going to give us the best benefit for how we live. Yeah, last question.
I misunderstand. It sounded like to me you were saying that his decision to do something which might endanger him and him alone is immoral.
not